Welcome to the Catholic Messenger Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Dan Russo, editor of the Catholic Messenger. This week we have a very special guest, Sister Anthony Worrell. She is a teacher at Assumption High School in Davenport here. We're going to be talking about things like Catholic Schools Week, vocations, and living out the Franciscan charism, since Sister is a Franciscan religious. And we're also going to have an update from our diocesan reporter, Lindsay. Before we get into the rest of the show and the interview, Lindsay, I'll throw it to you. What do we got going on?
Well, the big news is that the Catholic Messenger's 2026 subscription drive is underway. For those of you who don't know, the Catholic Messenger is the official newspaper of the Diocese of Davenport, and we've been around for a little more than 140 years now. Paid subscriptions to our weekly publication make it possible for us to continue sharing a wide range of local, national, and international content, and to fund our free outreach endeavors such as the website, newsletter, social media, and this podcast. And, I really feel that in current times, it's important to read newspapers as opposed to relying on online algorithms that feed our anxieties without much additional content. I know I've spent way too many nights doom scrolling, and I think that's true of a lot of us. And maybe I'm biased because I work for the Messenger, but I think it's nice to open up a publication that focuses on issues rather than simply taking sides, seeing examples of people who are working to make the world a better place, learning about different aspects of the faith, seeing how people are living out their faith in real time, and addressing the hard stuff too. There's something to be said about having all of that right at your fingertips. And since I know money is increasingly tight for a lot of us, we keep our rates low. It comes out to a little over 50 cents a week. And we very rarely raise our rates, even as production costs continue to skyrocket. So if you've enjoyed this podcast or any of our other content this year, please consider a one-year subscription to the Catholic Messenger. If you go to a parish in the Davenport Diocese, which is essentially the southeast corner of the state, you can just call or email your parish to sign up. If you live outside the diocese and want to subscribe, and we have an increasing number of people from nearby dioceses without newspapers who do, as well as some of Bishop Walsh's friends and family from Ohio, just call us or go to our website at www.catholicmessenger.net to sign up. We appreciate the support through the years and hope to continue informing, educating, and inspiring the faithful of the Davenport Diocese for many years to come. And now, Dan, this is your first drive. So we do it in late January every year, and everyone on staff, including the bishop, our publisher, contributes to the drive in some way. One of my jobs is to take a memorable photo of the bishop reading the newspaper. So, one of our retired editor, Barbara Ellen Fye's favorites, and this is before I started about 12 years ago, was Bishop Martin Amos reading the paper while getting a haircut. And when Bishop, now Archbishop Zinkula, was here, we took a photo of him taking a break from snowshoeing on the Duck Creek Trail. This year, we took a picture of Bishop Walsh reading on the couch in his office with his dog Rosa snuggled close. And I have to admit, Rosa, much to Bishop's chagrin, was not being a good girl the morning of our photo shoot. But the minute she hopped on the couch, she posed perfectly for us, and I ended up getting the shot in about 10 seconds. So good job, Rosa, and good job, Bishop.
Yeah, that was a good one. Well, one of the things we noticed about the bishop, I asked him why he has a dog, and he said because it not only does he like animals, but it helps to humanize them to people. I think sometimes with priests and religious, you kind of are put in a world apart, and lay people, even for maybe pastors at different other denominations, they're sort of put on a pedestal or put aside. So that was a good thing that we got the dog involved. And thank you, Lindsay, for that.
And I think actually, do you still have a dog at your mother house?
We do. I was just thinking, we have a big, huge Labradoodle. We named him Brother Simon, and he is very Franciscan, of course, to love animals. But Brother Simon in our community, we say he's our therapy dog, because when you live in community, again, we're all sinners trying to become saints, and so we can rub each other the wrong way. And having this beautiful, innocent animal, who everybody loves, it's always going to be a point of peace, of joy. Just like we might not agree on certain things some days, or we might upset each other, but we can always come together and love on Brother Simon. So yeah, they're amazing to have around.
Well, Sister Anthony, let's start by getting a little bit of your order's background and your background. This week coming up, or January 25th to the 31st, is Catholic Schools Week, and you're a religious sister who belongs to an order dedicated to teaching. I notice you actually have the title Divine Teacher as part of your order title. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your order?
Sure. So yes, our order is the Franciscan Sisters of Christ the Divine Teacher, and we were founded in this diocese back in 1981. We started from a group of sisters who broke off from other orders because of the different directions they were going, and they wanted to retain some of the more traditional values of religious life. So they ended up settling here in Davenport, and we are currently located in the West End, down off of Boise Avenue, right across the street from St. Alphonsus Church, which most people know because of the beloved fish fries. So I came and joined the order in 2008. So I've been down there since 2008. I took final vows in 2012. And so it's been an amazing journey for me. And my vocation story, to get into it a little bit, is I grew up here in Davenport, and I had no idea this order existed, because they're down in the West End, and the West End has been hurting in the past few years. But before, everything was down there. They had a grocery store. I mean, the bank was down there. The school that was attached to St. Alphonsus. And so the sisters didn't really have to travel very far to live their life, to live their apostolate. And so even though I lived in Davenport my entire life, that they were here, I never saw them. And so I had no idea that was even an option. But when I realized I had the vocation, I went to my priest, and they were the first people that he sent me to, which is really kind of amazing because I had no idea what I was doing. But I ended up down there, and it's just been amazing ever since.
Now, I have to maybe clarify some things, because sometimes your state in life you're referred to as a nun. Some people call sisters consecrated religious. What's the proper terminology for your way of being? How would you?
Yeah, everybody's like, is there a difference between nun and sister? Technically, yes, but also no. So nuns and sisters, consecrated religious, whether it's male or female orders, we all take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And so that's common across all of those states. Nuns technically are referring to the religious who are cloistered. So they will stay behind their convent walls, and they usually do not interact with the wider world. Their apostolate is to pray for the church and for the world. Those what we call active orders who are religious who are out in the world. They have a apostolate works that they do in the community. Like for us, it's teaching. So we teach at schools. We work in the parishes. So we're out among the secular world. And so technically we are called sisters, but we take the same vows and try to live the same kind of holiness and charity as nuns. And so, yeah, consecrated religious, that covers both sisters and nuns, and of course, religious brothers, friars, monks, all of that.
And I think there's a lot of variety there, because you wear a habit, and you actually have, I think, a Franciscan sort of, would you call it a belt?
We call it a cord.
A cord.
Yeah.
And then you have that's a special type of a cross around your neck, which the listeners can't see it, but it looks sort of like, is that a Franciscan type towel cross?
It is. So every religious order has a particular, usually a medal or a cross that they will wear around their neck. Ours is a Franciscan symbol. And if you look up like the Franciscan symbols, you might be able to find a picture of it. But the cross looks like the letter T rather than like the normal crucifixes we see. So it looks like the letter T. And in front of the cross, there are two hands that are crossed over each other. And one hand will have a sleeve at the end, and the other hand looks like it's bare. But both hands will have a cross in the middle of the palm. And so the one hand with the sleeve represents St. Francis, and the other hand represents Christ. But they both have the cross because St. Francis bore the wounds of Christ at the end of his life. So this is a very Franciscan symbol. And this particular one that I wear, it is actually unique to our order. So it was designed for us. And so you won't find it worn by anybody else but our community.
Now, so you stand out just by the way you look, but then I know that you work in a high school, so you stand out even more being around a bunch of teenagers. So let's get into that. What do you do at the high school? What do you teach? How do you try to bring your faith and Christ to these kids in that context?
Sure. So we, of course, are a teaching order. So the name of an order will often tell you, like, what is their main apostolate, their main work. And so, of course, our order, we're called Christ the Divine Teacher. And so teaching, but Christ was a divine teacher. And so particularly we like to teach the faith. And we're not attached necessarily to a school. We try to teach the faith in a Franciscan way, which is everywhere, anywhere, in any way we can. But luckily, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we were invited to teach at Assumption High School. First, Mother Susan came, and then I was able to teach the next year. Mother has retired since then, but I've been teaching juniors for the past 10 years. And I love the junior class. I always tell them they're my favorite. And so I teach the junior theology classes, and I cover mostly the topics of sacraments and in the fall, and then social justice in the spring. And it's been amazing. Mrs. Murphy, our principal, she has loved having the visible presence of religious there, because having that visible presence, the kids gets the kids thinking without me having to say anything sometimes. It also lets them know, one of my favorite stories is when I first started teaching up at Assumption. It was after school hours. Mother and I had been out at a meeting or somewhere. We were driving around, and we happened to be close to Whitey's. And so Mother's like, let's get ice cream. And I'm like, absolutely. And so just because you're a sister does not mean God makes you give up ice cream. So I went in to pick up some ice cream, and it happened that the Assumption debate team was also waiting, and I hit the door, and all of their jaws dropped to the floor, and they were like in total amazement. And one of them finally got up the courage to ask, but they're like, can nuns eat ice cream? And I was like, you better believe it. Like, God is good. Like, he is good. And so, yes, they were very excited to find out that, yes, we are still able to enjoy ice cream every now and then. And teaching there, it lets them to see that, yes, we're normal people. We have sense of humor. We have bad days. We have good days. But we are trying to show them that we are consistent in our apostolate and our faith and our following Jesus.
Now, one of the things that I was thinking of things to talk about here, and there are a lot of misconceptions or stereotypes about sisters. Now, when I was a kid, one of my first memories of sisters was the movie Blues Brothers, and we're sitting in a radio station with a lot of jazz and blues people on the walls. But that was a movie about two guys. It's probably an old reference for everybody. But they were put on a mission from God because they went to a Catholic school where nuns taught, and nuns used to have a very strict reputation as teachers. And I think it endures today, Lindsay. I don't know if you've ever seen that stereotype of the strict nun teacher with a ruler.
Oh, I've heard stories from my dad who went to a Catholic school. Yeah.
Well, that was when I was growing up. I didn't get to have any contact like we're having now with nuns. But are there any other stereotypes that you've found or that you've had to overcome being a nun, being a sister, that that are still around there? And how do you get around that to relate to people, I guess?
So there's a lot of people. It's funny. It's mostly the gentlemen that will remember being reprimanded by a sister with a ruler. I don't know if that has anything to do with particular gender stereotypes, but it's just an interesting commonality. Yeah. And so, yes, even me, it's like I'm like past that generation. And one of it, I've been confronted with it, and people will come up to me like, "Oh, sister, I used to have this one nun," and blah blah blah. And I was just like, "Wow!" And I think what for me, especially because we wear the habit, when I correct a student, like it's more memorable, I think, coming from a sister than because I think yes, the sisters used to do this, but that used to be the culture across the board. You would get corporal punishment from your parents at home, but when a sister does it. But I try to like remind the students, and this is what we live by even in our community, is if you're not happy in your vocation, then you're doing something wrong. And I'm like, I told my students, I'm like, if I'm not happy, it's because I'm doing something wrong. And nowadays I kid, and I'm like, you know what? We have so, progressed past the whole ruler thing. And I'm one of these days, I'm going to get a taser. That's, we have to.
That'll work.
We have to progress
upgrade,
with
right?
the times. We have to upgrade, and yeah.
Yeah, and I should mention there are other religious orders for women in the diocese, and some of them don't wear habits, and there's a lot of different variety. And I think that a lot of people, they might have a certain narrow box, but you guys seem to go where you're needed. So with your teaching, you're in the era of social media. There's a lot of things maybe pulling kids away from the church. There's not a lot of youth engagement. There is some, but I would say it's hard to get youth engage with their faith. Can you tell me what you're seeing on the ground there with a lot of the youth that you work with?
It's been an amazing experienced these last few years. So working at Assumption, Mrs. Murphy has done an amazing job trying to increase the Catholic identity of this school. And little things like we were able to restore the Blessed Sacrament in our chapel. So the presence of Jesus is always now on campus. We have increased a lot of religious artwork in the school. So we have murals now in the cafeteria at the ends of hallways. Just last year, she was able to obtain a life-size replica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And she is so beautiful at the end of one of the hallways, which is not my hallway where my classroom is, but she is absolutely astounding. You turn the hall and you see her at the end, and she's just gorgeous. So there's been a lot of things like that. We have done a lot of work as a religious department to increase our content that we're giving them. Just this year, we started offering religion classes every day to the upperclassmen. So juniors and seniors now get theology every single day. And something is, and not that we're doing really anything, or these things have been producing results, but there's definitely like the Spirit moving among the young people. Even social media, where it can take away, like there's such better content, and so they've been watching like Matt Fradd or Scott Hahn or Ascension Press or Father Mike Schmitz. God bless that man. Like he is just so popular with the kids still, and they love to see his videos. And so we are definitely seeing an increase in the faith being lived out by these young people, even when it's not necessarily lived very, very well at home. I've had a number of students now that I've had like 2 or 3 students actually come into the church, and their parents weren't practicing anything, but they have taken the sacraments and are now going to Mass on their own, and it's just so encouraging. We have groups of students that are banding together to live their faith out as a group, holding each other accountable. It's just, I would like to see that we're part of that growth, but I definitely won't take credit for all of it.
Yeah. That's encouraging. I know Lindsay just did a story about the Seek Conference, which is some high schoolers went there, but there's also college there. So there's a lot going on there. I wanted to ask you a little bit, too, about your Franciscan, and the Pope had just declared a jubilee for the 800th anniversary of the death of St. Francis, and he was involved in a renewal of the church after a period of sort of decline. I think we're kind of in a historical moment here where maybe the Catholic Church is also experiencing some decline, but also a rejuvenation. Do you want to talk a little bit about your charism as a Franciscan, and what do you think of this Jubilee year that the Pope has come up with?
Sure. It's funny, when I realized my vocation and I had my spiritual director sent me to the Franciscan Sisters of Christ the Divine Teacher, I grew up Catholic nominally, and so I'd heard of St. Francis, heard of St. Dominic. I kind of knew what religious were, but I had no idea what a charism was. And so when they talked about, Franciscan charism at the beginning, I kind of fell into the trap that many of us do, and they mentioned this at Seek, is that we see St. Francis as the garden gnome saint, surrounded by deer and birds. And I'm like, I don't know. For me, I just, I love animals, but no. So when I got to the community and began to read the life of St. Francis and study the documents, the things that he wrote, I was just absolutely astounded at this humble little man, was so brilliant and insightful about the incarnation of God. That's the Franciscan spirituality and charism, is that we love that God became man, that he became visible, that we can see him. And so that's what Francis wanted to do for everyone. It's one of the reasons that led him to begin like the live nativity, so that people could see what the birth of Christ actually looked like. And once I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, you knew exactly what would please my heart in this charism. And so I've loved the Franciscan charism. And so having this Jubilee year is just amazing, to be able to share that charism with the rest of the world. And it's actually been like a 3-year Jubilee, because we celebrated the rule of Francis, we've celebrated the gift of the stigmata that he received, and then this year, of course, the anniversary of his death. And one of the things I was thinking about just the other day was, it's been 800 years since Francis walked this earth, but through his devotion to Christ, through his humility, he is still able to inspire people in this current age 800 years later after his death. And I'm like, how could you do that without Christ, without him lending grace and keeping that spirit alive? And so that's just kind of very cool.
Yeah.
And I think, was it 2018? I don't, somewhere around there. You went on our the Catholic Messenger pilgrimage. It was when Mother Teresa was becoming a saint.
Yes.
And I think that you got to walk through Assisi.
That would have been my second time in Assisi, and I love Assisi. The first time we went, Mother Susan, she also loves Assisi, and we both of us got to go to Rome, and it was more towards Christmas time, which is an amazing time to visit Rome and Assisi. And we got to Assisi, and Mother Susan, she loves snow. Okay, please do not send us hate mail. We do pray for snow, not ice, not wind, not anything terrible, just pretty beautiful snow. And so she was like, before we left, she's like, wouldn't it be amazing if it snowed in Rome? And everybody told her, like, no, Mother, like, it doesn't snow in Rome, like, ever. Like, it just doesn't get that cold. So the first day we got to Rome, it was very temperate, very nice outside. Every day of our trip, it got colder and colder and colder. And the last day of our trip was the day we were going to visit Assisi. And we woke up and the fountains were iced over in Rome. And I was like, oh my goodness, she's going to get snow. We got to Assisi and we got to this open square in the Basilica of Assisi, and down it comes. And I'm like, I'm never going to hear the end of this.
Oh.
And so it was so beautiful. And it was just like Francis's gift to us. And so, yeah, anytime we get a chance to go back to Assisi, we're there.
Now, I must say that we found out today that they're going to have a vocations workshop in Iowa City this weekend for the Diocese of Davenport. And you're living out a vocation. Do you have any, working with young people, any ways that you help young people figure out what their vocation is when you're just having your daily, contact with them? Any tips you could give young people that might be listening to this about discovering what God's will is for their lives?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is I think it's just the fear of if I ask God what he wants, will it be something that I want? And so I think just getting past the fear of being able to, in prayer, to ask, Lord, what do you want? Because, they're afraid it's not going to be something that they want. And I just, to try to show them, even as I teach the students, the joy that a vocation brings. When you find, the path that God wants for you, he knows who you are. He knows the desires of your heart better than you do. He knows what's going to delight you in that path, and to trust him, and to be open to even asking the question, whether he's seeking you through marriage, whether it's through religious, the priesthood, whether it's service, because he knows who he made in each person, and to trust him with that.
Yep. And one last question, I guess. We were talking about, humanizing the religious life or priests or people like that. What do you do for fun when you're not, actually teaching or praying? Or
oh my goodness. My schedule's been so busy. But Mother Susan has been a movie buff. And so she loves all of the old movies. So we watch movies. Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, all the good oldies. We've watched movies. I like to read. Reading is one of my favorite pastimes. I also like crochet. I've made rosaries. Mother Susan has done stained glass windows. So each of us has our own hobbies, because religious life, it has to embrace the entire person, right? Your spiritual life, your prayer life, that's part of who you are, and it's extremely important, but that's not the totality of the person. And so we live a very well-balanced life. She loves, one of the things that's so funny because we're so almost opposites. We try to stay complementary. So she loves to actually cook, and I like to bake, but I actually like to eat savory foods over sweet foods, and she likes to eat sweet foods over savory foods. So she bakes, and she cooks, and I'm so excited. I bake, and she's delighted.
Well, that's
amazing.
Great.
I know.
Well, I think we're probably bumping up against the end of the show. I want to thank you very much, Sister, for coming, especially on short notice. And I want to thank KALA for hosting this. As we're talking about the subscription drive, I would also ask any of our listeners to support this radio station. We couldn't do this podcast without them. And happy Catholic Schools Week to everybody. And Sister, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Just a shout out to all the juniors at Assumption this year. You guys rock.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sister.